Okay, so I wanted to share with you just some updates and let you know what your membership committee has been working on. So recently we started a club calling effort. I asked Ken if we could rally the assistant governors together to make some phone calls to club leadership. Now we're not completely through that process. I think I received 4 different AG's responses back, but we're asking them to call club leadership and identify what's working in your club, what's not working, why do you think that is in either case, what is helping you be successful, and what are the issues you're facing. I've asked them how we can better support them, and then encouraging them to participate in these calls to get this great information that we're sharing from people that are having success in different areas throughout the district. And so if you haven't heard from us yet, you will be. And then we'll be pulling that data together and sorting it so we can ascertain recurring patterns and then develop some action plans around that. Secondly, I wanted to touch on RILA. So this is an attraction topic, and I think there is a great deal of opportunity for us to attract new members and to begin introducing and exposing young people into Rotary. Now, we all know what RILA is, and I think most of our clubs are participating and trying to send some kids. I was speaking to Michael Wells, who, if you were at district conference last year, you attended a session where he talked about a Mexico trip, where he takes all of these younger interactors and Rotaractors down to Mexico, and they would build these houses, and then they would stay at a resort. So they got to see these 2 sides of the economic spectrum, so to speak, to give them some appreciation and to introduce them to a service project at an international level. And so I called him up because he has a very vibrant Rotaract and Interact community in his district. And I asked him, why do you think that is? What are you doing that is successful? Share with us. And one of the things that they're doing is they're requiring their Rilarians to come back and either join an Interact club or begin an Interact club. Requires is a that's a big word. So, but when you think about it from the perspective of we're making an investment in these kids and we're sponsoring them, and we're asking in exchange for that sponsorship for them to look at Rotary and consider a membership within our club. So you'll have to find the words that you want to use there, but I encourage you to think about that. About, Ron Burton, who was the international president in 1314, said it best when he said, we write a lot of checks to a lot of kids and then we wave goodbye. And so this is an opportunity for us to reverse that a little bit. The second thing he shared with me is that they send all of their Interact and Rotaract club presidents to the North American RILA Conference. If you simply Google that, you will find the information. It is in July on an annual basis in Washington, D.C. And he feels that these club presidents come back energized, engaged, fired up, ready to lead their club. So they've drinking from, the Rotary Kool-Aid cup, so to speak, and they come back and they're just really ready to help their club be successful. And I don't have a lot of Interact and Rotaract experience. I'm working on starting one now, and I'm going to share a little bit more of that with you. But what's clear to me is you need an advisor that's willing to take the time, because it takes a lot of time and energy to start that. And 2, you need strong club members, people that are going to be able to reach out to their network, recruit others, and to then lead those kids. And so, this is one more way we can help them be more successful, which leads me to this Rotaract opportunity. So as I mentioned, some of you have talked about with this before, and I've done a blog post on it. But I set up a booth at the College of Idaho to recruit some possible Rotaractors to start a new campus club. Like it is in most Rotary situations, I ran into somebody I knew and I invited them to join. That one person she happened to be in a sorority, so she's reached out to a lot of her friends, and then we worked on some flyers that they passed out around campus. and I believe we have enough kids to charter this new Rotary Club. And obviously the campus is a great place to find a bunch of young people to consider starting a Rotary Club. So I then approached the Canyon County clubs and I asked them, would you be willing to help sponsor Melissa, our new club president, to go to this North American RILA conference? And they have very graciously agreed to support her. And now I'm just working out the details with her. But I encourage you, if you have a university in your area, to consider this initiative. But again, I go back to, it's really important to identify somebody that has the time to be able to own this. And then I wanted to just let you know that we did file for the Rotary Young Professionals Grant that was emailed to, I think, most club presidents as a district. And we expect to hear in regards to the grant awardees in early March. And then if we are awarded those dollars, I will be reaching out to the different areas. We will host an event in 4 different regional areas to try to capture as many people as possible, but I'm going to need help with some organizers. So I'll be contacting you at that time. So more to come on that. If you have any questions on Rotaract, RILA, this North American RILA conference, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to visit with you more. And then I want to congratulate these 3 clubs. They have 10% growth at this time. And, you know, I emailed them and I said, this doesn't happen by accident. I know that it takes a lot of effort on your part. And I asked them to share with me a little bit what they think that secret to success is. Jim Martin, Boise Centennial, replied back to me. And essentially what his quote here says is, people show up and they feel the energy of our club and they're excited. They just want to be a part of it. And that's so important. And that speaks to what we talk about all the time, club vibrancy, getting people excited that they come and they feel the energy and they know that this is a great place to be. But I wanted to, and I thank Jim for discussing that, but I wanted to, though, talk a little bit about who is that person. And Doug Pill and I met a little while back ago, and we had a great conversation and about those right people. And who are those people and how will we know them when they arrive? So Doug, I'm going to unmute you now. And then ironically, after we had this conversation, I've had a little bit of new information that's, you know, kind of just shown up in my social media feed and in my email about this very subject. And it's made me think a lot about it. And you know, when you think about in business, we often think about when we have performance management problems. When I'm talking to clients, I look back to their hiring practices. How are you identifying, you know, what this job requires, and how do you know when the right candidate arrives? And then when I put that in the terms of Rotary, it's really the same thing. You know, when we have retention issues, you know, we can look to those same principles. And Doug and I had a great conversation about it. He was a president the same year I was, and so we got to work together that year, and we've stayed in touch. And so I asked him to come and talk about that. So please welcome Doug Pill. He is going to be sharing with us today, and I'm going to work on, here, Doug, giving you control. So Doug, are you able to utilize the
Jennifer, I am.
Okay, wonderful. So take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I think it may be prudent to take just a moment to talk about how we kind of developed what we're going to discuss today. Jennifer mentioned that she and I were presidents the same year of our own individual clubs. And remember back at that time, our economy was in a free fall. I was getting ready to take over a Rotary club that had declined in membership. Looking back, I believe, including myself, we were down to about 12 or 13 members. It made it very difficult to attract and retain new members. One of the things we did have going for us, actually 2 things I think we had going for us as a club, was number one, I believe we had probably a much younger age demographic in terms of membership than other Rotary clubs around the region within our district. And secondly, the Rotarians that we did have were very impactful. They were there for the right reasons. And so what we're going to talk about today was really driven from the fact that I knew that as a president of the club, we had to begin a long-term sustainable plan and implementation of rebuilding our membership back to what it once was. So going from somewhere around 12 or 13 back up to the plus 22, 23, 24, 25 range. Back in 1919 at the Rotary Convention, Albert Adams said, "Never take in a man for whom you will later have to make excuses, and never take in a man merely for his bigness and material success. Unless it be sure that he is a Rotarian at heart, it is better to have 15 good members than 75 members who are Rotarians in name only." I think that gets back to the core purpose of Rotary and what we are. I believe that this statement does a wonderful job of describing the ultimate goal of not just membership and scale, but most importantly, that our membership has a value alignment with who we are, what our objectives are, and ultimately it creates a membership with strong retention. The fact is, civics-based organizations around the globe are recognizing a declining membership reality. With that, Rotary in North America is not immune to this trend. All Rotary clubs are working hard and diligent to find new members. We're shouting it from the rooftops, asking people to join us, and handing them a membership application when they first visit. But ask yourself this question: when was the last time we stopped to ask ourselves collectively as a club, what kind of members are we really looking for? As a general rule, we already know that we don't necessarily have an issue attracting new members, but that we do have issues with retaining them. Why is that? The truth is, that answer is complex, but it starts with the basics. It begins with gaining an understanding of what we want and gaining an understanding of what they want. In other words, value alignment. Value alignment is the process of understanding what they're looking for, communicating what Rotary can be for them as individuals, and setting those expectations accordingly. We must begin to understand that every potential Rotarian has differing objectives when it comes to engaging a civics-based entity. They've sought out our club for a reason. They're looking for something. It might be that someone invited them. They want to get more involved. They want to meet some people. Heck, they may even want to develop business opportunities or relationships. Oftentimes when we greet them at a club meeting, they'll probably share something like, "I'd like to get more involved." That's truly a surface statement and doesn't go very deep. To help ensure value alignment, an interview should take place. But first you need to understand what you're looking for in members. The interview should be centered around understanding what the candidate's expectations are in terms of what they're trying to achieve, along with what the club's expectations are and what I call the 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. Every volunteer entity is looking for these 3 things and many more, but it's the place to start. The first T is time. Every club has an expectation of time commitment to membership, including regular meetings, community involvement, volunteer opportunities, training, and many others. By the way, my friends, we all realize that Rotary does take up some of our weekends. That should be communicated early on in that interview. I would encourage you to express this to the candidates during the interview process to ensure there's no surprises 60, 90, or 120 days into membership. The second T is talent. Our clubs run on energy and talent of our membership. New members should be introduced to the concept that while Rotary is a volunteer organization that you get to pay to participate in, it also requires members to engage in committee officer positions, fundraisers, and many, many more. My friends, this is why we roll up our sleeves and get dirty when it comes to Rotary membership. Treasure, the last T. The financial commitment to Rotary is one that occasionally is overlooked, but should be addressed during the interview. Look at your individual clubs and express the dues structure, happy dollars, fines, other miscellaneous expenses that Rotarians will incur to ensure this is not a shock. Once you've discussed the above, you must explain to the candidate what the purpose of your Rotary club is. While every club is looking for different things in new members, your answer might differ from the examples listed on this slide. What's most important is that you know, more importantly, that you can verbalize it. It's important to discuss expectations. It's common for clubs to express what club do and clubs do in terms of service projects, but it's perhaps not as common to discuss the rules of engagement. Rotary is a special organization, and it deserves the best from its members. It's important to remember that means different things to different people. Don't fall into the trap of explaining how to do Rotary right based solely on your perspective or how to do it, but rather paint a picture of the ways that the prospective Rotarian can engage, but also explain what's expected as a basic minimum level so they can decide, is this right for me? You'd much rather learn this now than later. I'll use an example. I was actually just wrapping up my Rotary President year, and someone that I had talked to Rotary about for probably 6 to 8 months had called me out of the blue one day and said, hey, I'd like to attend a Rotary meeting. I told him, that'd be wonderful. Why don't you show up at the Riverside Hotel at 10 minutes to 7 Thursday morning, and I'll introduce you to some fellow Rotarians. He went through the meeting, very much enjoyed it. He left. The next Wednesday, he called me back and said, I'd like to attend another Rotary meeting. Would that be okay? I said, that would be wonderful. Please do so. So he went to the meeting. Following Wednesday, he called me and said, I want to become a Rotarian. At that time, I said, you know, I appreciate your enthusiasm. I think it may be best served if you, myself, and maybe someone else from our club would sit down and have a conversation about what your expectations are for Rotary. You've been to 2 meetings now, and you feel the vibrancy from our club, but there's also mutual expectations that need to be talked about and defined so that you can become a Rotarian for the rest of your life. We met for coffee and learned about what his expectations were, and then we went through the conversation about what our expectations were from our Rotarians. We talked about the time, the talent, the treasure. We talked about how we our small club engages the community and what burden and requirements that puts onto that prospective Rotarian. And it's communicating and understanding and defining expectations. Then we can mutually say, and I say mutually because we need to make sure that we're allowing the right Rotarian into our club, that this person could become a future Rotarian. And ultimately he did. He's made a very positive impact in our club and is becoming an emerging leader today. And that process right there, if we had not gone through that, he may not be having the experience that he is today, and he may not be benefiting from the fruits of his labors today. So ultimately, when we do this right, Club C increases in membership, we have more engaged Rotarians, we have greater impacts in our communities, and far beyond that, we have healthier clubs, and always remember, success breeds success. Discussing value alignment in the beginning ensures that your new member understands the rules of engagement, but we understand what they're looking for, that it's a match. When that happens, the member wins, the club wins, and Rotary wins. Ultimately, always remember that retention is your objective. Jennifer, that wraps up my presentation.
Thanks so much, Doug. I really appreciate that. I think, it's when Rotary first started, the pendulum was on one side, and it was pretty difficult to get into the club. The pendulum has swung to the other side. And we're not trying to prohibit people from being in Rotary at all. That is not the message. And I appreciate everything you said, Doug. Your comments were spot on. It's just about value alignment. What are they here for? And are we going to meet their needs? Will they be happy? And then next step, once they're here, then what do we do with them? So it's A, we got to get the right people on the bus. And then B, how do we help them get engaged? Well, I called Steve because I had heard a little bit about what they're doing in McCall. And I'm going to unmute you now here, Steve, in just a second. And I asked him to present. And let's see here, Steve. Trying to unmute you. Steve, you may need to unmute yourself. There we go. Steve, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So when I first called Steve, he was a little bit hesitant, and when I asked him to share about onboarding and engaging members, and he said, his comments were, well, it's really just common sense. And I said, you're absolutely right, it is common sense. But they're doing an excellent job of it in McCall, and he's going to share a little bit about what that is. But it comes down to, and again, I know I repeat myself a lot, but it's because I really believe so much in it. And that is, there is no quick fix. I think, we're looking for that magic recipe, that quick little, we'll do this and it'll change, but it just doesn't work like that. Things that are worth doing, that are going to have great outcomes, they take time, they take thoughtfulness, they take our energy, they take our passion. And so I asked Steve to come and share a little bit about what McCall is doing and his passions and how he's getting people in the right spot and enabling them to find their own. So Steve, I'll advance the slides for you. So I'm going to go ahead and move this forward, and you're off and running.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. For those of you who aren't familiar with the McCall Club, we're a club of about 65 members. It's a resort community, obviously. 50% of our membership is over 50 years old, myself included. I'm a 59-year-old, very fortunate person that has some business success, that lives in McCall by choice. And our target audience for new members is obviously the young professionals up here, as well as our recent transplants to McCall that are retirees or folks that are in my position. And we've had some very good results with bringing that membership demographic into the club. And Jennifer asked me to define what we call onboarding versus your typical orientation, which all of you know what orientation is. We call it the fireside chat, where once a member is approved, we bring them in, we give them the talk on Rotary history, areas of service, which in our club we have 6 areas of service, just general expectations that we have of them as Rotarians. Challenge is we haven't done a very good job of finding out what they expect from this thing called the Rotary Club. So we got very active in this concept of onboarding. And what the onboarding is, it's simply a process where we get people connected socially and integrated into the club. Because for many of the new members, especially the transplants, recent retirees, it's a social connection. And they bring with them years of business experience and professional experience that is invaluable in a small community. And ditto with the young professionals wanting to get connected and be able to get back to the community. And through this, we found that having an ownership process in something for a new member, in other words, being able to pursue their passion or interest in a philanthropic organization such as Rotary, is a good thing. They find value in that. And for some, becoming a Rotarian with this onboarding process is simply a social outlet for a while. They like the meetings, they like the programs, and we respect that. Not everyone who becomes a Rotarian obviously is cut out to be a Rotary president or a board of directors of a Rotary club, but the social aspect is key, and I look at that as a bit of a golden rule approach. When you go to a buffet dinner, you pick and choose what you want, and I think we need to stay open-minded to that as far as what the individual's needs are. And as far as Jennifer helped me with a slide called the McCall Way, what that is in a nutshell is basically, I'm repeating myself, but finding what the new member's passion or interest is and get them involved in one of the areas of service, one of our 6 areas of service, be it community service, new generations, which is our youth exchange primarily, and our scholarship programs, international service, Rotary Foundation, community service, or a vocational group, finding out what it is that blows their hair back. Not where we necessarily have the need to put a body at the moment, but actually find out what it is they have a skill set in, what area they would like to serve. And we do that by actually talking to them versus trying to force them into something maybe they're not comfortable in. A couple of recent examples that are really great with that is a gentleman named Craig Broom, who's actually our vice president, who new Rotarian. He had experience with Rotary Youth Exchange, saw that we involved in Rotary Youth Exchange. He now chairs that and is bringing on a young mother and IT exec that's fortunate to live in McCall and telecommute, bringing her on as his successor when he's club president. Another example is a 50-year-old retired attorney named Jim. Jim's very skilled in PR and IT. Well, there's some challenges, and especially in our IT capabilities up here. And Jim has taken that on, and he's a new Rotarian. Onboarding with the steps we take with the fireside chats is what we use as the term orientation. That's really step one. That's something that I think got Jennifer's attention when I was talking with her at the district conference was what we call a new member forum. And a new member forum, and I'll get to an agenda on that on the next slide, that is something that we started about a year and a half ago that has been tremendous for us. But I'll come back to that in a moment. The Spring Fling is another social event that we do that involves spouses. It involves significant others. We meet at someone's home. We also do a non-progressive progressive dinner, which that almost sounds like an oxymoron, but it used to be a progressive dinner, but sometimes when you try to do that in November in McCall, things don't work very well because it snows a lot. And we have about 80%, 70 to 80% club attendance at these functions. It's where you get a chance informally to talk not only about Rotary, but about just your life and living in McCall and giving back to the community. We also do a road cleanup project, which, you know, who wants to go out and pick up trash? It is remarkable the turnout we have for this because, once again, we involve the spouses, significant others, and in many cases, we're turning to bring their families. The same with a Christmas party lunch that we have. It's our Christmas function that we have at the short lodge where we meet each Wednesday for our regular meeting. But we do something very special at Christmas. And we involve the spouses once again, family members and friends, and guests are welcome to participate. But we raise between $6,000 and last year we raised $9,000 in a single afternoon that we give back to a kids program through Heartland Hunger. And that's pretty special. And the point is, about every 2 to 3 months, we try to have something on the docket that is a social event for not only the Rotarian, but the Rotarian's a spouse or significant other. Now onto this business about the new member forum. On the next slide, this is just an excerpt from an agenda that we put together for that function. And as you can see, a lot of this is we want the opinion of the new Rotarian. We don't want to just force feed the new Rotarian with what we think they should be in Rotary. And we have actually gotten a lot of very good ideas, ideas that we have been able to implement and change certain things we do in the club from this. And the buy-in from new members and their participation on this has been nearly 100% each time we have done one of these. And it is so critical, we feel, to get the spouse involved and plugged into the process. In some cases, for folks, Rotary is an expensive club to belong to. And they watch their quarterly dues go out, the Paul Harris, etc. And I think it's important to have the connection. If in some families the Rotarian maybe is the one that makes the financial decision, it could be the spouse to actually have them involved in the process. And in these meetings, it's interesting the response we get when we explain the group philanthropy thinking. In other words, what we give back to the community as a group, and the good things we do in the community versus individuals. In our case, we give away $20,000 to $25,000 a year, plus what we do with our scholarships for the kids and our book program. And we're able to do that as a collective unit, and that would be very difficult to make that type of giving contribution for most folks as individuals. And we build on the value of that. That's what else I want to tell you on that. And yeah, looking after that is what can we improve on. By the time we have this new member forum, which is a light dinner at a Rotarian's home. We've had it at my home a couple of times, and at Nancy and Mike's one time. Once this occurs, we have had Rotarian on board for probably 3 to 6 or 7 months. Why that is important is because by then, they've actually been in the club long enough to form an opinion, and it is very valuable for them to share with us what they think. And we take it very serious. So on board, next slide shows on board and make it personal.
Excuse me, Steve. This is Ken Howell. Jennifer had to open up all of the mics, and so if you're listening to Steve's presentation, if you could mute your phone because we are getting some background conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Steve, you'd like me to move forward?
Sure. Yeah, to be make it personal. There you go. All right. This is probably the most important message of all, as we found, is just keep it flexible. And I'm going to cite a couple of examples. Being a resort community, we have to be careful on how we administer the Rotary attendance rule. We all understand the rule that what we've done, we've created a snowbird status. We have folks that don't like the cold. They go away for 3 to 6 months. So we basically suspend the lunch bill. We keep them on as far as their districts and their RI. They get the Rotary magazine. They're still Rotarians. And we welcome them back when they return in April or May. And then they go away again early February. We've extended some courtesies in terms of attendance flexibility to a county commissioner who has sponsored a couple of really, really strong members in our club, and Commissioner Cruikshank. He travels a lot. He's a very well-known commissioner in our state. He spends a lot of time in D.C., spends a lot of time in other states. We just afford people that flexibility and are glad to have them attend when they're able. As far as thinking what the members want, and not just saying that we need to stick with the status quo. Something as simple as singing. And circling back around, we're really working and have had great success in attracting younger members. We have 2 applications in at the moment of folks that are between 30 and 35. We don't sing every week. We found through some polling that some folks weren't necessarily comfortable with that. Some of our senior members are. So we dialed that back a little. We're working hard not to be viewed as a bunch of old white rich guys sitting around in a Rotary Club meeting. We are really working to attract the younger members, because that's what's going to fuel the success, obviously, going forward in Rotary. Having relevant feedback from members. We pride ourselves in having programs that are interesting, and we involve the members in recruiting speakers for our meetings. We don't feel that's one Rotarian's responsibility that's in charge of programs. We circulate a form, and folks sign up to sponsor a speaker on a given Wednesday, and we've had tremendous success in doing that. We are never short of speakers. We actually have, we're booked out right now through about the end of June, and we have Rotarians that are trying to get on the schedule in July, August to September this year. And this onboarding process, identifying a personal passion is really the key. And once you identify that personal passion that someone has, there's a real good chance that there is a slot in an area of service in the club that they're going to do really good in. Okay, circling around to the last slide, Jennifer, as far as the point. To summarize, the point is that there really isn't a 100% perfect approach that works in every case. But you can find something that works in most cases. And that's what we really stay focused on, is not letting the new member fall through the cracks. Keep them engaged through conversation at the meetings, mix it up at the tables, so that someone doesn't feel like it's a cliquish organization where the same 5 business guys sit at the same table number 6 every week. Work hard to just make the new member feel welcome, and continuing to reach out and listen, be open-minded to change, and be sure that the member is the one that's finding the value in Rotary, and keep that conversation open. And I do this a lot before meetings and after meetings, especially with people who aren't necessarily 100% engaged. Always trying to see what it is that Rotary can do for them, not just what they can do for Rotary. And that's how we believe we can keep people engaged. And through that, the message is spread throughout the community that we're a great place to be on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock. So,
thanks so much.
That's all I have.
I really appreciate it. A few things I wanted to hit real quick that I heard both you and Doug say. One of, I think, my favorite lines at the beginning from Doug was the term mutual expectation. And so just remember that you know, we have a role to help them find their place in Rotary, but we want to make sure that we're what they're looking for and that we communicate what they can expect. So I liked that word, and then his follow-up comment, so that they could be a Rotarian for the rest of their life. Steve, I loved your comment about kind of that golden rule and helping them find their passion, letting them pick and choose what they want. And then you closed out with that same comment, what Rotary can do for them. And I know in an organization whose motto is service above self, sometimes we forget that we have to help people find their Rotary why, because at the end of the day, Rotarians are human beings and they're wired to do things that they enjoy. And so we have to help them find that place and what that looks like for them. You know, people have a tendency to define Rotary as it works for them. So they'll communicate with somebody, well, this is what you need to do. Well, no, that's what Rotary is for you, but you need to let them find their own Rotary. So our job is to help them explore the opportunities and then help them plug in. Yesterday I received an email and it had a blog post in it, and it is fantastic. I'm going to, when I send out this recording and some other follow-up material, and Glenn, I did receive your chat message requesting a copy of that. We are going to send this out in a recording link, so you will receive that. But I'm also going to send the link for this blog post. And it's essentially quality over quantity, which is what we talked about at the beginning of this, is how do we really find people that are in alignment, and then once we believe they are, then how do we make sure that they find what they're looking for. And so, you know, this is just a couple of pieces that he talked about in his blog post, was where do we start in practical terms for long-term sustainability? One, what do we look like 5 years from now? How do we understand where we're going and what we should be doing if we don't have that clearly defined? And then number two, identify club members who share the quality philosophy and having them interview people. So having them share the expected financial and service commitments. And that's kind of what Doug talked about before. So it's an invitation, but it's also that understanding or that mutual expectation. And then he talked about at the end, committing to this for 3 years, because this sustainability change takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So you have to have continuity in your leadership and a commitment to do that. So with that, the phone lines are open. I see some chat messages here. Let me see what they say. Chase says, one thing that he just said about including new members reminds me of something one of our members does very well. Brian Viewers is amazing at giving a quick recap of the club's business, projects we're working on, past projects, etc., for our guests and for our new members. It helps everyone feel like they're included and feel like they're being specifically brought into the club business. That's exactly right. That's one method of engagement, is talking about what we're doing, who's been involved, and kind of shining that spotlight on them, and that member sense of pride at look at all that we've done. So I'd like to, with the few minutes we have here, does anybody have any questions, comments, or best practice they'd like to share up?
Jennifer, this is Terry.
Hi, Terry.
You know, as I go through this, one idea that's come to my mind is internet. Why do we go back to certain internet sites? Because they're vibrant, because they're new, there's something there to see. We learn something. We enjoy what they have. That's why we want to be in a Rotary Club, because it's a new face every week. There's something energetic in that club. There's some reason to want to go back to it. The vibrance that you said. I think this is important that clubs, you know, maybe they don't have to reinvent the wheel, but they can at least put decorations on the tree every week so people enjoy coming back.
Yep, that's definitely right. Now, that's kind of what Jim Martin alluded to at the very beginning. The quote from Boise Centennial is, people show up and they're going to feel that energy or lack of when they visit a meeting, and they're going to make a quick first impression decision. So you're absolutely right. Things need to be fun and exciting. And, you know, I say a lot that people have a lot of ways to spend their time. So if we want to spend it on Rotary, make it worthwhile. Any other comments?
Hi, Jennifer. This is Clovis.
Hi, Clovis.
I've really enjoyed the presentation this morning. A couple of things stuck out in my mind, and that was about new members falling through the cracks. Yeah. I think it's so important that mentors, whoever brings the person into a club, really mentor that person and follow some of the things that were presented today. The other thing is, does the club really embrace you when you come into it? And I'm talking specifically from the standpoint of visual. When you walk into a Rotary Club, do you see banners? Do you see things that make you feel like, wow, I'm in a real Rotary Club? Just a couple of comments, and I really appreciated Steve's comments on the fireside chats, the new member forum, and so on. So I feel that I have gotten a lot out of this, and I appreciate your presenting this.
Thanks, Clovis. Well, I want to be respectful of people's time. It's 9:45, and I have some save the date information on your screen here. Of course, all of this is also at Rotary5400.org, where you'll see these dates. But I encourage you to be thinking about them, planning ahead, getting them on your calendar, encouraging your members to show up at district conference and have a Rotary vacation with their Rotarian friends. We're going to be talking about some membership best practices at district conference, both from a leadership perspective, but also from a new Rotarian perspective, as a new Rotarian, helping them find their Rotary why. So, and of course, there'll be lots of other great things. And one of my most favorite people in the world, Ron Price, is going to be one of our keynote speakers. So it's going to be a great conference. I encourage you to get your club there, and because it just creates that camaraderie when you can spend some time together, really developing and deepening your relationships. You see the midwinter assembly dates, and then we have our next leadership call in April. So everybody, thanks so much for your time. Please email me any questions. As I mentioned, you will be receiving a copy of this recording and a link to the blog post that I referenced earlier. Thanks to our presenters, Doug and Steve. You did a great job. I appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom with us today. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.